Well, it was an epic Lewis Hamilton production in the end, courtesy of the stewards, who gave him a 10-second penalty. We'll get onto all that in a minute. And in so doing, gave us an amazing grandstand finish. That was not their intention, I'm sure. But Lewis Hamilton rose to the occasion, just as Nigel Mansell used to rise to the Silverstone occasion, and took the lead from Charles Leclerc to win the British Grand Prix with 1 or 2 laps to go. It was just an amazing day at the races. And it's interesting to think now whether Lewis would have driven exactly that race had Silverstone been completely empty. Because like Nigel, he thrives off the crowd. And you could tell the adrenaline was building and building over the last 10 laps. Anyway, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself because there are so many things to talk about in this Grand Prix. Let's get down to that first lap incident between Max and Lewis. You'll recall that Lewis thought he'd won the pole on the Friday, but lost it on the Saturday, so it was Max on the pole, and Max made a good start away from the line. Lewis made a good start too. And they were very close. In fact, Lewis was kind of alongside Max as they went into turn 1, and Max ran really wide on the outside, kept the line, kept the lead. So out of turns 1, 2 and 3, they were side by side. As they got towards the back straight, Max immediately moved to the left, thinking, right, there's no way Lewis Hamilton is going to do anything down the inside, underbraking for the tight left at the end here. And Lewis just pulled up alongside Max, and they're inches apart. This is just amazing. This is Ayrton Senna versus Alan Prost or Nigel Mansell. This is amazing stuff. And Max just brakes as late as he possibly can into the tight left. Lewis is there, eventually has to give Max a little bit of room. But it was breathtaking stuff. And I imagine at this point, Lewis is probably quite angry. He's probably thinking, some of that's a bit vicious from Max. He is a bit wild, you know, and you've got to put it into the context of Lewis here, because here's a guy that's won everything. He's looking to set records, of course, with another world championship, but he's won everything. He's done everything. He is who he is. And yet his hunger and his aggression was just astonishing. He said after the race, you know, I think in sort of explaining from his perspective what happened with Max at the next corner, you know, Max is a really aggressive driver. Well, Lewis, I'm sorry, I'm not being critical here, but Lewis, you are the ultimate aggressive driver. After where you've come from and where you are now, to be that aggressive and that competitive is just amazing, breathtaking, as I say. Anyway, they go into Copse, and Max again moves to the right, thinking, yeah, Lewis is all over me here, but no way he's going to pass, as Max would. And it's good that Max, with all these points, and having won all these races, I keep stopping, but it's good that Max is still this ultimate racer as well. And we saw that today, the two titans, absolutely brilliant, squabbling for a millimetre of road, the same millimetre of road, in very, very quick Formula One cars, flat out into Copse on a full load of fuel on tyres that aren't yet fully hot. It was just amazing. Anyway, Max naturally goes to the inside down the old pit straight, but he doesn't do it fully, and he leaves a little bit of a gap. And Lewis, being this amazingly competitive driver, goes for that gap, as he would. And I don't think, I mean, this is where I have to say I completely disagree with Christian Horner, because he's saying, and the Red Bull argument is, that is not a corner in which you can overtake. Well, I'm sorry, Christian, you obviously weren't watching Lewis when he was winning that GP2 race at Silverstone all those years ago, and at subsequent Grand Prix, Lewis has passed people there. And as we saw later in this Grand Prix, that's where Lewis took the lead from Charles Leclerc. It's not an easy place, but it is flat, and you can get through on the inside. And Max, to my eye, it looks like Max thought he'd closed the door enough and then just focused on the corner and started to turn into the corner. And possibly it's a mirror thing when he didn't know Lewis was actually there, but it's so split second there. I don't think you can even say that, because he probably wouldn't even have had time to look in the mirrors. I don't think they can get it in peripheral vision, or maybe they can, but I doubt it. And they touched. Had he hit at a different angle, I mean, the impact was enormous. It was over 50 G, something like that, deceleration, not lateral, but deceleration, which is not pleasant, of course. But it was, yeah, I don't think Lewis should have got a penalty there. And I say that because we just had this amazing, stunning opening lap, and they'd been within an inch of one another. Lewis was down the inside. There was a gap. Yeah, he was a little bit in front, but I don't think that is the point. I think the point is that two cars can go into there. Okay, maybe Max would have had to run a little bit wide, but they can go through there. And I think, Lewis is a racing driver just as much as Max is. And let's face it, we've all been saying all year, these two titans at some point are going to have this sort of incident. And we got it at Silverstone. And I think it was kind of a shame that then the stewards had to go away and do their deliberation, and we had to listen to Christian Horner and Toto Wolff giving their arguments. Toto saying, "I've just sent you an email, Michael." And Michael saying, I don't receive emails during the race because I like to stay focused. What was that all about? You'd think Toto would know that. But anyway, moving swiftly on from that, I think it's kind of a shame that these guys deliberating about two incredible athletes doing what they do at this level of their ability. And you didn't have Charles Leclerc going up after the race to Lewis Hamilton saying, "That is not a corner in which you can overtake. You should never do that. We're going to penalise. We're going to protest you." None of that. It is a racer's corner, that one. And Max knows that as much as Lewis. That's why he moved across, for sure. If it wasn't a place he could overtake, what was Max doing trying to defend going in there? There's another point. And then beyond that, I love being on board Charles Leclerc when you're watching all that, because Charles, you can tell, he's made a brilliant start as well. He's got Bottas off the line. He's got too much wheel spin, and Bottas was off the line, which is terrible today. And Charles there, P3, and he's not far away from Max and Lewis, and he's sort of obviously watching it or wondering what's going to happen. And I thought it was just brilliant as he turns into Copse and he sees what's happening. Charles just goes down a gear and guns it and gets the lead, and you can just live that moment with him. And that, to me, was one of the best moments of the Grand Prix. I don't think there should be that sort of, there was no way to overtake there, or Max is too aggressive. Max is aggressive, Lewis is aggressive. Neither of them are too aggressive. And I wouldn't have said any one is more aggressive than the other. That's the first point. Secondly, you can go into Copse. So there's another point. And thirdly, although they did give a 10-second penalty to Lewis Hamilton, I personally don't think it was justified. That's my opinion. Everybody out there may disagree, but I don't think it was. And I don't like to see that happening in this sort of windowed room with the stewards deciding on the fate of these two athletes. But as it happened, that 10-second penalty was about the best thing they could have done, because what a finish it gave us to the race. If Lewis hadn't had that 10-second penalty, he would have walked it, of course. But we got that grandstand finish, courtesy of the 10-second penalty, which Mercedes served during Lewis's one and only tyre stop from medium to hard. Lewis was more competitive in the second half of the race, partly because I guess in the first half it would clip your wings a little bit, having had an incident like that. And I think that might affect him by about 5% probably in performance. And then I think on the lighter fuel, Mercedes were doing a better job with the management of the tyres. You could say, oh, well, maybe they did a better job on the hard tyre than the Ferrari. That's what it would look like on the face of it. But I think it's more to do with lighter fuel and how damaging the Mercedes can still be on heavy fuel with its tyres. And that went away in the second half of the race. And then if you've got a Mercedes with a good set of tyres that aren't degrading too much, they're going to be quicker than a Ferrari. They've got more inherent downforce. Interesting, they both came up with the two top speeds. I made a note of the top speeds when Lewis was catching Charles, and Charles was doing 3:04 on Hanger Straight, Lewis 3:03 consistently. Obviously, when the DRS came into play, Lewis did a 3:22, but otherwise they were dead equal. And McLaren, interestingly, a little bit slower than that. Aston Martin, ridiculously quick, but very equal in top speed between Ferrari and Lewis Hamilton. But okay, so that's all that. The next point, Valtteri Bottas, who finished third. One of the most ironic remarks of the day, I thought, came from Valtteri's engineer when he said, do not attack Lewis when he comes up to pass. We're going to have a team order situation. Well, if he's going to say that to Valtteri, which is fair enough, he's the number 2 driver there, de facto number 2. Why weren't they saying at the start of the race Charles Leclerc? Where was Valtteri Bottas? If anybody should have won that race, it should have been Valtteri Bottas. And the minute Max went off, I just note, easy win for Bottas now, on the point that Lewis had damage on the car. Of course, they were able to repair that damage when they came into the pit lane and they had that 20-minute hiatus. But this was the moment for Valtteri Bottas to step up and take advantage, if you like, of Lewis's problems and beat Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. Lewis was there pushing him like crazy in the first half of the race and then beat him in the second half of the race. Where was Valtteri? His car was perfect. And, you know, there's a lot of stuff afterwards about, oh, Valtteri, you played your part in this win. Well, all he did was wave Lewis past and slow down on the hanger straight and let him pass. Well, I mean, he should have won that race, or he should at least have been pushing Charles really, really hard for most of the race to make the job a little bit easier for Lewis, I guess. But one other point, of course, there's so many things going on, but Charles, a third of the way through the race, started to not panic, he was just really worried because his engine started to cut out 2 or 3 times and they put him onto a new setting. But full marks to the engineers at Ferrari, who stayed really calm at that moment and said, don't worry, should be okay now, Charles, no problem. Just don't do any more upshifts if the engine cuts out again. Which is quite a difficult instruction. I was thinking about that. It's probably quite a difficult instruction to obey, but Charles said, okay. Presumably they've had this sort of issue before, but I thought the way they handled that in the garage and the tone of voice of the engineer at Ferrari, absolutely superb, perfect job, and Charles did a perfect job. I mean, I've been saying for a long time, and regular viewers of this channel will know that I've always had Charles right up there with Max and Lewis as one of the best 3 drivers in the world because he's this wonderful touch and feel driver. And I actually got quite a lot of flack at the start of the year when I deigned to suggest that I thought he'd be quicker and do a better job this year than Carlos Sainz. But anyway, putting that to one side, I think this was just a brilliant performance from Charles. It was wonderful to see, and it was a masterclass actually on what to do in a car that isn't the best car in Formula One, but to take advantage of everything that's going around you. And all those races we've had, I think it's, I don't know, something like 30 races, 27 or something since Ferrari actually led a Grand Prix, and here they are leading virtually every lap of the race. All those races in between have been races where Charles Leclerc often has driven to 6th or 7th or 5th place in a car that is only good for 5th or 6th or 7th or 5th place. And it's been very under the radar. But those are the races that when the day comes, when you finally have your chance, it just falls into place. Everything happens incredibly, not easily, but in a logical way. And that's what we saw today with Charles Leclerc, benefiting from all those amazing drives he's put in over the last 2 years. So excellent drive by Charles. Felt really sorry for him in the end. But a great decision by the stewards, if you like, for the fans to give that 10-second penalty to Lewis. Valtteri, very disappointing 3rd, I thought. And then there were McLaren finishing 4th and 5th. Daniel Ricciardo was there or thereabouts all day, but Lando Norris, just another stellar drive from Lando to finish 4th in the McLaren Mercedes. Both cars reliable, both of them quick, and yeah, just very impressed, very, very impressed by everything they did. Blew all the midfield away again. And for a while out there, Lando was up there ahead of Valtteri Bottas as well. It took Bottas quite a long time to pass Lando. He will think back, oh, I lost a lot of time there. But Valtteri, I'm sorry, what were you doing behind him in the first place? That's the real point. And the other driver I'd like to mention is Fernando Alonso, who I thought did an outstanding job as well. He started 7th, finished 7th. He was behind Sebastian Vettel. He didn't make a great start on the first lap, but then Sebastian dropped it all coming out of the complex, which would have made Fernando smile, at least I would have thought. And he brought the car home in 7th place, so full marks to him. Excellent drive. Good to see Alpine and certainly Fernando scoring some decent points for a change. What a racer he's been all weekend. But it was an unforgettable British Grand Prix at Silverstone. Lewis Hamilton won it despite that 10-second penalty and despite all the dramas. Charles Leclerc was outstanding for Ferrari, and Max Verstappen probably would have won it had he not had that incident with Lewis Hamilton. Next round of the championship is Hungary. The new stiffer Pirelli rear tyre certainly seems to look good on the Ferrari and the Mercedes. Seems to have lifted their performance almost to the level of Red Bull. Much tighter circuit though in Hungary. Let's see what happens there. Big thanks as ever to Jetcraft. See you soon.